The growl of my motorcycle faded into a shaky kind of quiet as I eased off to the shoulder of that empty country road. Late afternoon light stretched across the pavement, long and lazy, but one shadow caught my eye right away, small, trembling, alone. There she was, a little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, clutching a worn-out teddy bear like it was the last safe thing in her whole world. Her eyes were wet and glassy, and dust clung to her dress from sitting on the curb for who knows how long. When she finally looked up at me, something in her face, fear mixed with a tiny spark of hope, hit me harder than any fight I'd ever walked into. It was like responsibility, real responsibility, just reached out and grabbed me by the throat, and it was for a kid I'd never even met. Before I go on, take a breath with me, settle in. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in simple human decency, hit like, drop a comment, share this story, and subscribe to Stories of Old Ryan. It helps stories like this find more people who might need them. And hey, tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing how far kindness can travel. My name's Raymond. Folks around my town know me as the kind of guy whose presence can shut down a noisy bar without me saying a single word. Tattoos run down my arms like a road map of rough years, and the scars, well, they tell stories I stopped sharing a long time ago. My leather vest carries the weight of storms I've survived. Some out in the world, some inside my own head. No one ever saw me as the guy to ask for help. Most people crossed the street to avoid me. But when I saw that tiny girl wiping her tears with those shaking little hands, something in me moved, like a rusted shut door finally giving way. I killed the engine, let the echo fade off into the quiet stretch of road, and crouched down slow so I wouldn't scare her. She squeezed that teddy even tighter as I lowered myself to her level. My hands rested on my knees, rough and scarred, but my face softened without me trying. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was about to pull me into a story that would test whatever pieces of humanity I had left. She hesitated at first, letting out these tiny hiccups from crying so hard, and then, in a voice barely louder than a breath, she said the words that hit me harder than any punch life had ever thrown my way. "Uncle, can you take me where my mom used to take me?" The air around me felt heavier all of a sudden, thick with pain that wasn't mine but still found a way to sink into me. I hadn't expected her to talk at all, let alone ask something so full of heartbreak. She didn't ask who I was. She didn't ask if I was safe. She just asked for the last place she remembered feeling loved. I swallowed hard and looked around. No cars, no parents, no sign that anyone was coming back for her. Just an empty road and the weight of her hope sitting squarely on my shoulders. Most of my life I'd drifted, town to town, job to job, running from memories of a broken home and a brother I couldn't save. Responsibility wasn't something I stuck around for, but staring at that little girl, alone on the curb with a teddy bear and too much sadness in her eyes, running suddenly felt small and stupid. I asked where her mom was. She didn't give me words, just lowered her head, her chin quivering. And that silence told me more than any explanation could. I'd heard that kind of silence before. Hell, I'd lived it. The same silence that came when people asked me about my brother and why I didn't make it home in time that night. Grief doesn't need sound. It speaks loud all on its own. I rubbed my palms against my jeans, not sure what to do. I wasn't good with kids, wasn't good with people in general. But the way she clung to that teddy, the innocence in her voice, the shaky hope in her question, something broke open inside me. Something I thought had died years ago. I asked her name. She whispered Lily, and that name settled into me like something soft in a world that rarely gave me soft things. She pointed down the road, saying her mom used to take her somewhere in that direction. She wasn't even sure where. All she remembered were trees, water, and laughter. I stood slowly and looked the way she pointed. I didn't know what was down there, but I sure as hell knew what would happen if I left her behind. Fear, loneliness, and childhood memories that would freeze over if she kept walking through this world alone. I wasn't a father. I didn't have much besides my bike and a heart stitched together by mistakes and regret. But right then, one thing became crystal clear. I wasn't leaving her. Not today, not ever. I lifted her gently onto my bike, adjusting her grip on the teddy so it wouldn't slip. She didn't pull away. For a kid who just met me, she trusted me faster than I trusted myself, and that alone tightened something in my chest I hadn't felt since I was young, and still believed I could protect the people I loved. We rolled down the road slow, the engine humming beneath us. Lily leaned her cheek against the teddy and closed her eyes, maybe listening to the rumble, maybe clinging to a memory only she could see. I kept talking to her, trying to match her vague clues: trees, water, and a place her mom called magic. That wasn't much to go on, but I'd seen places like that while wandering. Quiet little spots where the world seemed untouched. Places that let a hurting soul breathe again. After about 20 minutes, she tapped my shoulder and pointed toward a narrow road lined with old oak trees. I slowed down. The entrance was small, almost hidden, like a place meant only for people who truly needed it. I turned in. The tires crunched over gravel, and with every foot we rolled deeper, the world got quieter. No cars, no voices. Just the soft whisper of leaves overhead and the occasional chirp of a bird somewhere up in the branches. Lily's eyes widened as we rolled deeper down that narrow path, and for the first time since I found her on the side of the road, her whole face softened. It was like her heart recognized this place long before her mind did. And then we reached the clearing. A lake opened up in front of us. Still, bright, wrapped in tall trees that leaned in like old friends guarding something sacred. It was the kind of spot where the world slowed down, where laughter didn't disappear, where memories took their time before fading. Lily's breath caught in her throat. "Mommy loved it here," she whispered. I stopped the bike and lifted her off gently, setting her down near the edge of the water. She walked slow, every step crunching softly on the pebbles. Her shoulders shook, not from cold, but from that quiet kind of sadness kids shouldn't have to know. I stood behind her, a few steps back, not sure if stepping forward would help her or take something away from the moment. I didn't have a handbook for grief. I'd screwed up enough of these moments in my own past. The last time I'd stood behind someone who was breaking, I was barely 20, watching my brother's best friend fall apart in the dark after the accident. Back then, I didn't know how to stay. I ran, but not today, not from her. Lily hugged that teddy bear tight to her chest and whispered things too soft for me to hear. Maybe she was talking to memories, maybe to the wind, maybe to the mother she missed so badly her tiny heart didn't know what to do with the weight of it. Evening settled in slow, painting the lake in warm golds and soft shadows. I just stood there, silent, waiting, because something in me knew this wasn't just another stop on the road. This felt like a goodbye, or maybe the beginning of something new. I couldn't tell yet. The breeze brushed across the surface of the lake, carrying that sharp, clean smell of pine and water. It was the kind of scent that felt like an old memory sneaking up on you. Lily's shoulders rose and fell with uneven breaths. She wasn't crying out loud. She wasn't calling for her mother. She was letting her heart break quietly, and honestly, sometimes that hurts more. I didn't move closer. I didn't say a word. Some moments are too sacred for noise. She stood right at the water's edge, her reflection shaky in the ripples, holding her teddy bear like she was afraid losing grip meant losing the last thread connecting her to her mom. The lake stayed impossibly calm, like the whole world had pressed pause so this little girl could grieve without being rushed. After minutes that felt like whole hours, she finally turned her head just enough to speak. Her voice was soft, fragile, like a butterfly wing. "Mommy used to sit with me right here," she murmured. "She said the water listened. She said if I ever got scared I could come back, and the water would remember us." Her words hit me right in the chest. I wondered what kind of mother teaches her child something that gentle, that magical, and what kind of pain a kid carries to hold on to a memory like that with both hands. I walked closer, slow, careful, like approaching a deer in the woods. When I reached her, she didn't move away. Instead, she leaned softly against my leg, still hugging that bear, staring out at the lake that kept her mother's memory alive. I sat down beside her, elbows resting on my knees, eyes fixed on the glowing horizon. Neither of us said a thing, but the silence had changed. It wasn't heavy anymore. It felt full, warm, even healing. I don't know how long we stayed like that. The sun kept sliding down, turning the sky into streaks of rose and amber, all of it reflecting off the lake like a painting. And for one brief moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades, like I was exactly where I was meant to be, not running, not hiding, just present. Eventually, Lily spoke again, her voice trembling. "Mommy said we'd come back," she said, "but she got sick, and then she went to sleep, and she didn't wake up." Her fingers tightened around that teddy bear. I wanted to see the place one more time before I forget. My chest tightened in a way I wasn't ready for. I'd heard plenty of heartbreaking stories in my life. Bikers who lost brothers, old men who buried wives, mothers who lost sons. But something about this tiny girl trying to hold on to a memory before it slipped away, that cut deeper than anything I'd heard before. I put my hand over her small, trembling one. I didn't know if it was the right move, but it felt right. As the sun dipped lower, I finally gathered the courage to ask how she ended up alone on the roadside. She told me in the scattered way kids do, simple pieces that somehow give you the whole picture anyway. Her mother had passed away, and she lived with her aunt now. The woman wasn't mean, just overwhelmed, working long hours and suddenly raising a grieving child. She didn't know about the lake, didn't know what it meant. Lily told me they'd had a small argument that morning, something about missing old times, wanting to go to the place her mom loved. And in her child's logic, she just went, wandered off to find it. She didn't plan to run away. She just wanted to feel close to her mother again. But the world was bigger than she realized, and she got lost. As she talked, something churned in me. Anger at the situation, sadness for her, frustration at how unfair life can be. I remembered being lost myself, not on the map but inside, invisible to a world that kept moving even when I couldn't. I didn't want that for her. When she finished, she looked up at me with those wide, searching eyes. "Thank you for bringing me here, Uncle," she said. Then she added something that just about cracked me open. "You remind me of Mommy, not how you look, just how you make me feel safe." And man, if there was ever a moment that could break a man and rebuild him in the same breath, that was it. When Lily said I made her feel safe like her mother once did, something inside me didn't break. It softened. It fell apart gently, not in pain, but in a way that finally made sense. I didn't smile, and I didn't cry. I just slipped my arm around her small shoulders and pulled her in a little closer, letting her know, without a single fancy word, that she wasn't facing any of this world alone. The sky was dark by then. Stars began poking their way through the night like tiny silver pins. Crickets started their quiet song. I noticed Lily rubbing her eyes, worn out from a long day and big emotions no kid should ever have to carry. That's when it hit me. I had to get her home before her aunt lost her mind with worry. I stood up, brushed the gravel off my jeans, and scooped Lily into my arms. She laid her head on my shoulder like she'd known me all her life. Her teddy bear dangled from her hand, swinging gently with every step. I walked her back to my motorcycle, careful not to wake her. But just as I set her down on the seat, she whispered half asleep, "Will we come back again?" I froze for a moment, looked back at that lake sitting quiet under the moon like it was guarding her mother's memory. I didn't know what tomorrow looked like. My life had never offered guarantees, no promises, no steady ground. But somehow, promising this little girl didn't feel like a trap. It felt like breathing again. It felt like hope. So I nodded. "Yeah, kid, we'll come back." She gave me a sleepy, tiny smile. And that single smile gave me something I hadn't felt in decades: purpose. The ride back was silent. The wind was soft, almost warm. And the whole world felt gentler than it had in a long, long time. When we pulled into her neighborhood, the front door burst open. Her aunt came running out, frantic and shaking, eyes red from panic. She stopped cold when she saw me. Big, tattooed, rough-looking. But when she saw Lily safe in my arms, all that fear melted right off her face. I didn't defend myself, didn't try to look harmless. I just told her where Lily had been, how I found her, and why that visit to the lake mattered more than anything. Her aunt's expression softened into guilt and relief all at once. She apologized, to Lily, to life, maybe to herself. Lily hugged me tight before heading inside. "Don't forget," she whispered, "we'll come back to the water." I nodded, my throat too tight to answer. I watched her step into the house. Watched the living room light flick on. Watched her aunt kneel beside her and cup her small face. Lily pointed out the window toward me, probably already telling the story. I sat on my bike for a long while after they disappeared from sight. Stared at the quiet street, the soft glow of the lamps, the peaceful little neighborhood. Something warm settled deep inside me. Something I thought life had beaten out of me years ago. It was the feeling that I mattered. The feeling that I had protected someone. The feeling that, even just for a moment, I'd become the man I always wished someone had been for me when I was a kid. When I finally rode off, the night wind didn't feel empty anymore. It felt alive. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about that lake, about Lily's tiny hand gripping mine, about the trust in her eyes that I never felt worthy of. I went back to riding, but something inside me had shifted. The world wasn't as dark. My heart wasn't as hollow. Sometimes I even caught myself turning my bike toward the lake, not to cling to the past, but to remind myself of the promise I made to a little girl who needed one steady grown-up in her life. A few weeks later, I went back to their house. Didn't plan it, it just felt right. Her aunt opened the door, surprised but smiling. Then Lily came flying out. Teddy bear bouncing against her dress, eyes sparkling like she'd been waiting forever. "You came back!" I picked her up and spun her around once, a rare smile stretching across my face before I could stop it. And for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Not because of blood, not because I owed anyone anything, but because two souls, one cracked by adulthood, one cracked by loss, had found some strange kind of healing in each other. And together we rode back to the lake and kept our promise. Because family isn't just the people who share your name. Sometimes, family is the person who pulls over on the side of the road when you're crying and chooses not to leave. If this story touched your heart, even for a moment, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Stories of Old Ryan. Stories like this stay alive because of folks like you. And before you go, tell me in the comments, what did this story remind you of? A memory, a feeling, a moment, anything.